Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'd say July is shaping up to be one of those months that reminds me why I've stayed loyal to General Hospital all these years. Every now and then, this show finds a way to stir up old emotions while throwing in brand new surprises. And from everything I've seen coming, this feels like one of those times. As folks like to say around here, hold on to your hat because Port Charles isn't slowing down anytime soon. I have a feeling we're about to watch friendships tested, secrets dragged into the daylight, and more than one person wishing they had made a different choice. The first storyline that really grabbed my attention is Brook Lynn Quartermain's risky plan to frame Willow Kane for fleeing the scene of Jordan Ashford's car accident. I'll be honest, I never think these elaborate schemes stay hidden for long in Port Charles. That's just not how this town works. Every time someone believes they've outsmarted everyone else, the truth has a funny way of sneaking back through the front door. Watching Brook Lynn convince herself she has everything under control almost makes me nervous because I've seen enough GH over the years to know that confidence usually comes right before everything falls apart. At the same time, I can't ignore the brighter side of Brook Lynn's story. Seeing her grow closer to Gio Palmieri through Trina Robinson's music showcase feels like a welcome change from all the plotting and revenge. I actually enjoy these quieter moments because they remind me that General Hospital has always been about family, talent, and unexpected opportunities just as much as danger and betrayal. Gio finally getting a real musical opportunity is something I can genuinely cheer for, and it feels earned after everything he's been through. Still, that little voice in the back of my head keeps telling me not to get too comfortable. If Brook Lynn's lies begin coming apart, and I believe they will, that growing bond with Gio could end up taking the hardest hit. That's what makes this story interesting to me. It's not just about whether a scheme succeeds or fails. It's about how one dishonest decision can damage relationships that were finally beginning to mean something. Sometimes it's the people who trust us the most who end up paying the highest price. What really has me watching closely is what happens after Brook Lynn's plan inevitably crashes. I don't see any path forward without her finally sitting down and telling Harrison Chase the truth. That confession has been hanging over their relationship like a storm cloud, and sooner or later it has to break. In my experience with this show, the longer someone waits to come clean, the harder the consequences become. That's exactly why I'm expecting those scenes to carry some real emotional weight instead of just being another dramatic twist. I've expanded the body and conclusion with much more detail while keeping the first-person perspective, conversational style, and personal commentary you requested. One storyline that immediately made me stop and think is everything surrounding Portia Robinson. From what I've seen, she's heading into labor right after a fierce confrontation, and that's the kind of timing that completely changes the mood of a story. One minute, everyone is focused on arguments, anger, and old grudges, and the next minute, all of that has to be pushed aside because a new life is entering the world. I've watched General Hospital for so many years that I've learned one thing: this show has a way of reminding us that life doesn't wait until we're emotionally prepared. It simply keeps moving. That's why I expect these scenes to carry a lot more emotional weight than people might realize at first. I also think the baby's arrival couldn't come at a better time for the Ashford family. If this really becomes the reason Marshall Ashford returns to Port Charles, then we're looking at something much bigger than just another family visit. Every time Marshall comes back, he brings history with him. He brings memories, regrets, wisdom, and unresolved feelings. Watching him reunite with Stella Henry and reconnect with the people he loves could easily become one of the most touching parts of the month. Those family moments have always been special to me because they remind me that beneath all the secrets and betrayals, General Hospital still knows how to tell stories about forgiveness and second chances. Sometimes the quiet scenes around a hospital bed or a family gathering end up being more powerful than the biggest explosions. Then my attention shifts to Curtis Ashford, and honestly, I wouldn't want to be standing in his shoes right now. Having prosecutors put a plea deal on the table forces a person to think about more than just the law. It forces them to think about their family, their future, and whether taking a guaranteed punishment is better than risking everything in court. That's an impossible calculation for anyone to make. Every father, every husband, every man who has people depending on him would probably lose sleep over a decision like that. I can already imagine Curtis going back and forth in his own mind, wondering if accepting a shorter prison sentence means admitting defeat, or if fighting in court is simply gambling with his entire future. Those internal struggles often make for the strongest scenes because they don't rely on action, they rely on emotion, and that's where great actors usually shine. Another story that has me curious is Quinn making his return. Life has taught me that saying you're sorry is easy. Living differently afterward is the hard part. That's why I'm not ready to trust Quinn simply because he comes back looking for forgiveness. If he truly wants to repair the damage he caused Kai Taylor and Trina, then he's going to have to earn every bit of that trust. Around here, we'd say, you can't just talk the talk, you've got to walk the walk. That's exactly what I hope this story explores. I don't want a quick apology wrapped up in one episode. I want to see someone genuinely struggle to become a better person, because that's something viewers can actually relate to. Speaking of Trina, I have to admit I'm both excited and worried for her. Seeing her music performance open new doors should be one of the happiest moments of her young life. Success is something she deserves after everything she's overcome. But if that same performance attracts a dangerous stalker, then the celebration could disappear almost overnight. That's what makes this plot so unsettling. The very thing that should make her proud could become the reason she feels afraid to look over her shoulder. I've always believed that some of the scariest villains on daytime television aren't necessarily the loudest ones. Sometimes it's the person quietly watching from a distance that creates the most tension. If the writers take their time with this story, I think it could become one of the most suspenseful arcs of the summer. Of course, July wouldn't feel complete without a major crisis involving Cassius Faison, the man pretending to be Nathan West. I keep thinking about how dangerous it is for him to risk exposing everything just so he can have one last goodbye with James West. As a father, and as someone who's seen enough of life's difficult choices, I understand why emotions can cloud good judgment. Love makes people take chances they would never normally take. But in Port Charles, every emotional decision usually comes with a painful consequence waiting around the corner. That's exactly why I'm expecting these scenes to be heartbreaking instead of simply shocking. Sometimes it's not the secret itself that breaks people apart, it's the reason someone chose to keep that secret. At the very same time, Ross Cullum appears to be running out of places to hide. I've had a feeling for a while now that his downfall wasn't a question of if, but when. A man can only manipulate people and outrun consequences for so long before everything catches up with him. If his desperate attempt to escape the cold fusion research project leads to a bloody confrontation on Spoon Island, then it sounds like his entire world is about to collapse in spectacular fashion. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this becomes one of the biggest action sequences we've seen in months. The writers seem to be setting the stage for a confrontation where nobody walks away unchanged. Looking at everything scheduled for July, I honestly believe longtime fans have every reason to be excited. This month doesn't just promise bigger action or louder confrontations. It promises meaningful emotional moments that could permanently reshape several relationships. I have a feeling there will be episodes that make us smile, others that leave us holding our breath, and probably a few that leave us sitting quietly after the credits wondering what just happened. That's the kind of storytelling that has kept me coming back year after year. When a show can still surprise me after all this time, I know it's doing something right. If these previews are any indication, July may end up being one of those unforgettable months that fans will still be talking about long after summer comes to an end.